Hi. This week we want to talk about environment and should the environment be a national security issue for Turkey or not? If so, how Turkey should frame this issue? In order to understand this better, we have to look into the details of the matter. It is a connection to physical and biological systems, while security is defined as protecting the national values against the foreign threats. And really, how should Turkey frame this issue while we are having lots of issues happening not only now in Syria and Iraq, and now we are looking at Iran and increasing the oil prices and some also increasing prices in the food sector, how this might impact Turkey's national security for future. Now, this week we want to talk about that. So let's start. Now, Robert Kaplan has wrote an article named The Coming Anarchy in 1994 that focuses on the connection between the security and environment. He argued that volatile and destructive threats were spreading to the other regions and would be exacerbated by raising sea levels, changing rainfall patterns, more frequent natural disasters arising from anthropogenic climate change. His core message was, in fact, it is time to understand the environment for what is the national security issue of the early 21st century. And he was looking this from an aspect of an American and to the American interest. Now, we want to talk about his perspective, but we want to talk about from a prospect of, or from a window of Turkish interests. Now, he has argued that there are several connections between the environment and security. These are mainly existential, physical, and political. We have been now seeing this emerging. In the same way, we can also now consider Turkey's position as a neighbor country to Middle East, which I imply here, especially Syria, Iraq, and Iran. And this extensional link forms a fundamental part of the Turkish security interest. When these values are threatened, the Turkish security is therefore threatened. The physical link, as Robert Kaplan argues, that there is a direct connection between the degradation of environment and the Turkish security, let's say, in that regard. It is impossible to reinstate the global environment damage or change, but we can contain and or coexist the common security concepts. And the political link suggests that there is indirect and it involves refugees, resources wars, offers the weakest threat, but the strongest intellectual challenge. In other words, the political conflicts caused by environmental harm are the most likely to occur in the regions, which we are now actually seeing in the Middle East, neighbors to Turkey. And that's the main concern that Turkey is now having some challenges. Is it really important or not? I would like to give you an example from United Nations. In April 2007, at that time the British Foreign Minister Secretary, Margaret Beckett, left no doubt as to the connection between the climate and the conflict. And hear what she said. What makes wars start? Fights over water, changing pattern of rainfall, fights over food production and land use. Considering these facts, should Turkey be concerned about the connection between the environmental degradation and war or a conflict? In our opinion, yes, Turkey should be concerned. The more dependent a country is to one of the natural resources of another country, it's more vulnerable to a civil war. Now let's look at the situation in Libya, Iraq and Syria. They have all in common great reserves of oil and or gas. But they have a limited irrigation resources or water resources. They have all limited land for agriculture. Due to the civil wars now, it has even been reduced to minimum. Lack of food in relation to the agriculture resources, shelter and sanitation, which causes great health disruption in these countries at the moment. These creates all these diseases spread within country and affects the neighborhoods. These people in those countries experience trauma, malnutrition and lack of adequate medical care. Now, these affects the willingness of a people or the determination of a people and reduce them to the minimum. Even you are, let's say, having a flu, you start fighting with it. But in these countries, after all these traumas and civil wars and lack of food, lack of sanitation and all these things happening, you stop fighting with even the smallest things. And then the death toll is increasing. Why? So let me give you another example. For example, in Iraq, the electricity grid was unreliable. Other than Baghdad, there is no really reliable electricity in Iraq. Even in Baghdad, after some time, maybe 20 hours in average, you can have electricity. Therefore, it leads a general problem, a sewage treatment problem, because the sewage treatment equipment cannot be run. What does it mean? It means the factories or the industrial facilities which produces all these sewages or unhealthy products or wastes cannot be treated, and they all go to the Tigris River, which is the only water resource of Baghdad. And what happens? Then it contributes to the outbreak of hepatitis. In fact, the risk of these death tolls have already increased after the Iraq invasion, 2003, double up, even tripled in some regions. Although the major cause of these death tolls are violence, mainly attributed by the violence or the air attacks or strikes, but most of the victims are also killed because of these illnesses. And also what I mean, it's not only the men, but women and children were killed. Measles, mumps, rubella, they all outbreak. 1/3 of the children cannot be fed properly. And this now increases all these unrest in Iraq. Not only the illicit business, the terrorism or other things, but the inefficient way of using the environment contributes to problems in Iraq. Although the Prime Minister of Iraq has recently resigned, it cannot really help the unrest go down. Still, it is on the top list. Still, the people are on the streets. The Iraqi government is forced to use real bullets on the people who protest in order to control it. Why? Because the weak states who doesn't have these tools or who doesn't have the intention to implement real politics in order to solve the genuine problems of the country has to use these kind of approaches in order to suppress the people in the streets. So that's now what we are seeing in Iraq. Not only terrorism or illicit business, or the unfairness of dividing or sharing the resources. Not only the corruption, but due to the environment, the arising of or people in the streets still continue. Turkey, in that regard, we have to mention that the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers, born in Anatolia, and they pour in Basra. These are the main water resources of Syria and Iraq. They are basically only the two. And unfortunately, the civil war really contributes to the destruction of the water dams, the irrigation channels, and those increase the health problems. And still, the unrest keeps in Syria, keeps in Iraq. That's why we see the food prices going up. That's why we see the people who cannot feed their children properly. The health problems still very high, especially for it threats the health of the children and the women. The death toll are increasing due to the insufficient health services. Therefore, Iraq and Syria keeps importing basic food materials or health needs from neighboring countries. Can they survive that while they are having all these problems? Do you think that it contributes really a real solution? When even, especially the corruption exists, especially in Iraq, is it really benefits for Turkey? So, Turkey at this moment should have the role that environment has a vital security issue for national security of Turkey. It doesn't only really threat Turkey, but it really threats the neighboring countries, which do not have the sufficient resources to fight with the degradation of the environment. Because all these things contributes to the genuine problems of Syria and Iraq, which threats us indirectly. Human and environmental change is motivated by the desire of analytical and political policy space for addressing core needs and rights of people vulnerable to serious socio-economical threats. As resources became scarcer and local conditions harsher, populations with weak governments that are unable to assist those people in adapting to changes will likely restore methods of self-preservation. And that happens now at the moment in Iraq and Iran and also Syria. I am saying Iran because you see the oil prices has been tripled. The food prices now will go up. It means because inflation. Everything will be now expensive. And that's going to now affect the environment and other things because all these industrial will start cutting the cost and so on and so forth. So Iran will be affected very seriously. So that's why these neighborhoods, environmental changes, which caused by either by US sanctions or other things or terrorism or illicit business and whatever it is, has a direct effect, in my opinion, if not direct but indirect effect on Turkish national security. That's why we, as geopolitical compass, considers that it is a issue, if not should be issue, for national security for Turkey. At this moment, we are not sure if Turkey has understood this yet. And the main reason why I'm saying this, because as you know, Turkey has initiated a military operation in northern Syria, basically from the Mediterranean coast till the Iraq border. The control is supposed to be under the Turkish military. And what we hear from the Turkish government, that they have the interest to build up all the shelters for the people. But this is not enough to sustain a foreseeable future stability in the region. It's because the military operation had success. It reached to a success where it reduced the risks. Now, in order to make this success not temporarily but permanent, Turkish elites or government is suggesting that Turkey is going to build I would say shelters for people to live there, which is very good, but they are forgetting the most important thing. We have to increase the economic activities, transactions, so the people start working. The unemployment rate will be down. Why? Because if unemployment rate is high, the oppress is high, it means the terrorist groups can find more people to fight for them against the countries. So in order to reduce it down, we have to increase the economic transactions. How we can do this in a region like Syria or Iraq? The only way is agriculture and livestock. So in order to do that, we have to really give importance to environment, because this is where they can only rise up. That's why we cannot still hear from the Turkish government that what we are going to do, how the irrigation channels will be improved or developed, how these things will be set up in that region, how those people coming to Turkey will be returned back to there, and there will be established, and they will start rising up there, and the economical life will be again going up. But I am, or we are, as a geopolitical compass, is confident that if not this has been understood by Turkey, which is environmental issue should be a national security issue for Turkey, it will be understood in future and near future, because shelters and military operation success is not enough to contain these circumstances at the moment. If you want to make it a permanent success, a permanent stability, we have to increase the economic activities in that region. And I am not very sure at this moment, again, that we see or hear from the Turkish government that how we are going to increase these activities in that region. I hope it will be, and I am sure it will be understood shortly. I hope we will not lose time about this, and hopefully it will work. Thank you for watching this video. And if you like it, there is a like button under the screen, please press on it. And if you subscribe yourself to our channel, once we make a new video, you will hear the first. Thank you for watching and have a great day. Bye.